Good day, friends. My name is Pavel Stelmach, and now we'll dive into the top news of exactly this day. On August the 1st, during military exercises in Belarus, two Belarusian military helicopters crossed the Polish air border for a short time. According to data collected by independent investigators, Belarusian helicopters invaded the territory of Poland to a depth up to 3 kilometers from the border. The Ministry of Defense of Poland also clarified that the border crossing took place near Białowież. The helicopters flew at a very low altitude, which is why they were not detected by radar systems. I am sure that this border violation is not a mistake or an accident, but a deliberate provocation. The decision on which is made at the highest level. The Lukashenko and Putin regimes are testing the reaction of Poland and NATO. Warsaw initially denied this incident, but then Polish Minister of Defense Mariusz Błaszczak called a meeting of the National Security and Defense Committee in connection with this. In Minsk, reports about the violation of Poland's border were called far-fetched. The investigators managed to accurately establish the shooting point and the approximate flight route of the helicopters, which, according to experts, after a demonstration flight over Białowież, turned around and went south. In the future, we should expect an increase in the number and scale of provocations at the border. The behavior of Moscow and Minsk testifies to their intention to scale up the aggression against Ukraine to the war against the whole West. As usual, open aggression is preceded by a hybrid stage. The Wagner PMC in Belarus is assigned the role of hybrid troops, for which neither Lukashenko nor Putin are allegedly responsible. The experience of Ukraine should teach NATO that the aggressor should be repelled as harshly as possible at the very beginning to destroy its hopes for impunity. Warsaw also informed NATO about the incident involving helicopters in Belarus. Defense Minister Mariusz Błaszczak called for an increase in the number of soldiers at the border and the allocation of additional forces and equipment, including combat helicopters. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Zakharova claims that Ukrainians want a president like Putin. As far as Ukrainians are concerned, Putin has the anti-rating of politicians. He is the personification of all the crimes of Russianism that will never be forgiven. Putinism is a disease of Russia. The dictatorial regime has ruled it for almost a quarter of a century and maintains the rating not with good deeds but with toxic propaganda and violence. Putin's dictatorship has suppressed protests during the Snow Revolution and kills its rivals for power, like Boris Nemtsov. It does everything to be uncontented. At present, dissatisfaction with Putin, who violated the basic social agreement, consent to a dictatorship in exchange for stability and security, is growing again in Russia. It can be expected that Putin as a politician will be destroyed by Russians themselves. Today he looks rather pathetic, hiding in a bunker, emotionally unstable, in poor physical condition. And you know what is most interesting about the situation? In Russia, they don't know what to do if Putin suddenly disappears. Although they call themselves a democratic country, power is transferred from hand to hand. This happened in 2000, when Yeltsin transferred power to Putin. In 2008, so Putin appointed Medvedev as president for 4 years, although he continued to rule the country as prime minister. But what will happen if the president, or rather the Tsar, does not name his successor? It is unknown. And this is a problem not only in Russia, it was also in the USSR. Just watch the movie Death of Stalin, although it is satirical. It is very similar to what really happened in 1953. Instead, Ukraine became a democracy, and we have stable prescribed rules for the transfer of power in case of emergency situations. Like in 2014, when Ukrainian former President Yanukovych fled to Russia. And one more, Ukrainians have never wished for a president like Putin. On the contrary, the rejection of tyrants is a defining feature of the Ukrainian character. Thanks to it, Ukraine is democratic and so stubbornly resists Putinism. Special representative of the President of Russia for Afghanistan, Kabulov, announced the official invitation of the Taliban regime to a forum in Kazan, dedicated to the fight against terrorism and drug crime. The Taliban movement, which now controls Kabul, is a terrorist organization itself. It does not have international recognition as the legitimate authority of Afghanistan, although the Taliban is officially banned in Russia as a terrorist organization too. The Russian authorities maintain active contacts with them. including international economic agreements. And she knows how the Russian media should talk about it. The Kremlin authorities met with representatives of the Taliban, terrorist organization. And then they have to explain which of the authorities are terrorists and why Russians meet with them at all. Maybe because there are terrorists in the Kremlin, or maybe Russians can't make such conclusions. They can't make any conclusions, otherwise they become insane after one day with Russian TV. But now world terrorists from Taliban is one of the greatest partners of Moscow, and cooperation with them poses a risk of intensifying international terrorism itself. Currently, the Taliban threatens even the ally of Russia, Iran. After the illegal seizure of power in Afghanistan in 2021, the Taliban gained access to giant arsenals of the most modern Western weapons that the United States had supplied to official Kabul to fight them. Now Moscow will use these technologies against Ukraine and the West, assisting the Taliban and military juntas in Africa, testifies to the hypocrisy of the Kremlin, whose propaganda broadcasts against international terrorism and coup d'etat. That concludes our today's video. Thank you for watching. Stay updated. Subscribe to our UATV English channel for more news from Ukraine. Your support is that really matters. Goodbye.